The patio was filled with laughter and the ring of glasses, an unusual instant of celebration, following decades of working their tails off in federal logistics. I'd just gotten a promotion to a multi-agency task force, a subtle but important move up that included a fat raise and an opportunity to finally get settled down. I'd purchased a house in the quiet HOA governed bubble of Willow Creek, thinking I could manage the neighborhood's fixation on perfect lawns and coordinating mailboxes. That evening, I had a couple of close friends over to celebrate the milestone, anticipating nothing more than fine food and finer company. What I did not anticipate was Margaret Hensley, the iron-fisted president of the Willow Creek HOA, storming onto my property like a general in a suburban conflict prepared to shut it all down. It was 8:03 p.m. when Margaret tread onto my lawn, her heels digging into the grass, a laminated sheet flapping in her hand like a battle flag she'd sent an email just hours before issuing a last-minute ordinance, requiring all non-resident visitors depart by 8 p.m. for noise abatement. It was rubbish, sun-voted, unposted, and in-law toothless, but Margaret didn't mind. She lived for control. Her HOA regulations, a maze of imperative dictates that changed according to her disposition. My first month in Willow Creek, she'd issued 4 citations. My car was parked too immaculately, my porch light too intense for community atmosphere. I dismissed them, aware she was trying me tonight, although she had pushed it too far and she had no clue as to who she was dealing with. "Your guests must vacate now," Margaret growled, thrusting forward her paper. "You're breaking the HOA's evening occupancy policy. Non-compliance results in fine citations and potential expulsion from the community." Her 2 dull lackeys behind her shifted uncomfortably, obviously wishing they had chosen differently before I could reply. My friend Javier, a field liaison with the FB. A smile as keen as a switchblade advanced. "We'll require that in writing with a section code," he said calmly, "unless this is a case of intimidation, which incidentally we have a duty to report under federal harassment laws." Margaret's face jerked. "Who are you?" She snapped, another voice sliced into the night. "That's Agent Javier Ruiz, ma'am." "I'm Agent Sarah Kim, DHS. That's Agent Vikram Shah from the DEA, and you already met Agent Marcus Tate of the ATF when you chewed him out for stepping on your alias." Sarah's voice was level but deadly, her badge catching the porch light's glare. Margaret blinked, shocked, then laughed a cold, incredulous sound. "What is this? A party costume, fake badges, don't intimidate me." 3 agents flashed their government issue IDs, holograms glinting. Margaret's jaw ground silently, her confidence shattering. "This neighborhood has rules." She spat. "No guests after 8 p.m. I don't care who you claim to be." I spoke for the first time. "Margaret, your ordinance is not legal. No vote, no notice, and the noise code you're referring to doesn't exist," I asked the city attorney. "Also, 3 of these individuals work on national security cases. You're skating thin, ma'am." She attempted to push past Javier, likely in order to slap a ticket on me, but Sarah stopped her. "Ma'am, back up, or we can resolve this with Homeland Security's complaint department." Margaret frozen her countenance into a mask of anger and calculation, accustomed to intimidating retirees and soccer moms rather than feds with actual power, but rather than backing down, she doubled back. "I'm calling police." She sneered. "This is trespassing. This is impersonation. Do you think you can intimidate me? I run this neighborhood." 15 minutes pass. 2 neighborhood policemen drove up, both of whom knew Marcus from a training seminar he'd delivered. They swept the yard, spotted the badges, and turned to Margaret. "Ma'am, there's no violation here," the senior officer replied, half concealing a smirk. "This is private property, and no laws are broken. I don't enforce HOA rules, and frankly, you're outranked tonight. Go home." Margaret stormed off, muttering about board escalation, but the damage was done. She'd picked the wrong house, the wrong night, and the wrong guest list. My friends raised their glasses, Javier toasting to HOA tyranny. May it always crumble like Margaret's ego. We laughed, but I knew this wasn't over. Margaret didn't lose gracefully the next morning. The neighborhood was unnaturally quiet. Like the wind preceding a storm, my mailbox contained 3 envelopes from the HOA, each more ridiculous than the previous one for having too many visitors after 8 p.m., another for aggressive non-cooperation during inspection, and a third requiring $1,000 for not vacating under emergency order. I laughed, took photos, and shared them with Javier and Sarah. Javier called, half laughing, half cursing. She's dredging her own grave at a rate faster than a cartel snitch. Sarah's message was Tyrer, she's ratcheting document, everything by noon. Margaret had posted flyers on every mailbox declaring an emergency. HOA meeting to discuss security concerns and resident destabilization. It was a not-so-tactile jab at me, and she wanted the neighborhood to rally around her. I attended the meeting, wondering to watch her perform. The community center was filled, Marbert at the front, wearing a blazer, sneering, as if she were conducting a congressional hearing. She began a rant against rule breakers endangering Willow Creek's shared standards, then flashed photographs of my yard snap from behind hedges, revealing my guests' faces, even license plates. It was an obvious violation of privacy. She brandished a folder, suggesting a new rule: 3 offenses in 30 days would exclude households from entertaining after dark. Some clapped, but others murmured uneasy. An older man asked whether the rule was voted on. Margaret brushed him off. Another neighbor challenged the legal status of her photos. She waved that aside. Also, I stood Margaret. How many citations have your board issued over the past 90 days? She stumbled over. That's immaterial, it's not. I interrupted those citations you sent me. Our federal review. Your guests are federal officials. You're interfering with protected staff on private property. Also, Hudsman informed your rules aren't signed up. The county, this meeting, these pictures, it's all proof of misbehavior. The room fell silent. Margaret's face turned white. She stuttered, accusing me of intimidation. But I exited, leaving her to seethe. That evening, 2 additional HOA letters showed up. One finding me for the disruption of proceedings, another threatening me with eviction, preposterous, illegal. But an indication Margaret was blowing up. The following morning, I found a worker pounding a sign into my driveway, HOA notice unauthorized gathering spot, in question. It was a public shaming strategy. I took a picture. Informed the dude DHS may want to have a word, and he took off. Margaret's antics weren't amusing anymore. They were harassment. What she wasn't aware of was the feds were in motion. Already DHS had opened a file. The DEA was cross-checking her name, and HUD was looking at the HOA's record. I hadn't prodded Margaret's own behavior, had activated the machine Javier and Sarah drew by, and suggested we gather resident grievances to establish a pattern. Sarah created an anonymous email address for submissions. We knew Margaret would lose it if she learned. But the tide was shifting that evening. Another HOA letter demanded suspicious spying in my yard and rejected inspections. Then I checked my wildlife cams footage at midnight. A figure wearing an HOA vest snuck through my hedge, fumbling with something metallic. A camera pointed at my porch. I sent the clip to Sarah, who passed it to DHS with an accompanying note: unauthorized surveillance on federal land. Within hours, a formal investigation commenced. Margaret had entered federal ground, and the legal machinery was grinding. A board member, Ellen, tired of Margaret's plots, slipped me a sheaf of internal HOA documents, plans for unvoted regulations, sound meters in communal areas, and Margaret's quest for unilateral citation authority. Ellen whispered, "She's constructing a police state. I'm finished." HUD auditors showed up the following day. 3 black SUVs rolling onto the HOA lot. Margaret swaggered out and then froze as agents presented her an audit notice from my porch. I drank coffee and observed her world disintegrate. The auditors discovered missing funds, unlicensed contractors, and fines redirected to a private account. Margaret's empire was crumbling. Residents began talking stories of $4,000 fines for incorrect mulch threats over late-night intruders. Ellen leaked. More, Margaret had killed appeals without votes. A preliminary audit summary landed in the neighborhood email listing: gross mismanagement and illegal spying board members. Resign lawn signs for Margaret's re-election. Disappeared. She shot off complaints to the county state, even the FBI alleging I was masterminding a conspiracy. Each agency discounted her, some requiring her statement. Instead, Margaret's last stand was a safety briefing at the clubhouse, a rambling breakdown about outside intruders. She requested emergency powers, but residents pushed back. One asked, "Who gave you the right to declare emergencies?" Her answer, "I earned it securing this space," became a viral hit with the title, Margaret imposes suburban martial law. The office of the HOA locks were changed the following morning. A county manager hired Margaret screamed through the glass until police removed her. But she was not finished that evening. My backyard gate had been destroyed. My wildlife camera had been stolen. Footage had been backed up, and the serial number on the camera was subsequently located at a county dumpster. A careless act, Margaret had become a suspect in evidence tampering and witness harassment. 2 weeks later, I hosted a barbecue. The neighborhood finally. Free kids, ran, adults, laughed, and the air felt light. Then a patrol car pulled up. 2 investigators walked past, heading for Margaret's house. She emerged pale, clutching a court summons flanked by officers. No drama, just quiet accountability. The party paused, the silence louder than any victory cheer. Neighbors thanked me not for winning, but for showing Margaret could be challenged. One family had paid thousands in fees. An older man had been threatened regarding his daughter's visits. These were not rules. They were Margaret's personal vendettas. Now she was charged with surveillance, tampering, obstruction. The HOA was in third-party hands. Fines. Returned Margaret prohibited from leadership for 10 years at a low-key dinner with Javier, Sarah Vikram, Ellen, and new friends. We dined under string lights. The yard tranquil. Javier toasted to HOA overreach. May it always miscalculate the feds. The neighborhood was making plans for a transparent bylaws I'd assisted in creating, but wouldn't be running, as Sarah left her. She said, "This place feels different." It did not because Margaret was absent, but because fear is power isn't in threats or in rules, it's in people who will stand up. Margaret believed her clipboard was superior to a badge. She learned the hard way. You don't intimidate a federal guest list and get away unscathed.